Whether you are in the United States, France, or the United Kingdom, an aircraft carrier is by far one of the most important vessels for any navy. Its ability to carry up to 90 fixed-wing aircraft and almost 6,000 passengers makes it seem like a literal city at sea. However, some are larger than others, and using such a massive vessel is often crucial for a show of force. Today, we look at the 10 biggest aircraft carriers in the world, and while some of these figures might not be completely available, we still have a decent amount of data to rank them. Keep in mind that new and bigger carriers might periodically arrive, but we'll be sure to let you know if you subscribe to our channel. Before we dive into the top 10, it is important to note that choosing the biggest aircraft carrier is virtually impossible. Depending on where you find your information, it could be ranked by actual length and width, or it can be ranked based on how many aircraft it could carry. For this video, we will be focused on displacement mostly, not using technology and actual length. Since a lot of this information remains highly classified, it is virtually impossible to discern which is the best. But we will leave the debate up to you in the comments section below. With that said, here are the top 10 biggest aircraft carriers in the world for 2025. When it comes to the French Navy, the Charles de Gaulle is by far one of the most important vessels in the entire fleet. Not only does it serve as the flagship of the French Navy, but its battle characteristics make it one of the most powerful vessels in the whole of Europe. The vessel has a displacement of 42,500 tons, while having the ability to carry up to 40 fixed-wing aircraft and a host of helicopters. Below the deck, two K-17 nuclear reactors serve as the main power source, and despite its massive size, it can still reach a top speed of 27 knots. So, while the French might not have the strongest navy, the Charles de Gaulle is one vessel you don't want to accidentally stumble upon in the Mediterranean, especially when you are in active combat with the French Navy. However, it is small compared to what is next on the list. While the Indian Army and Navy rarely see combat, or at least enough combat to make big news headlines, the INS Vikrant is perhaps one of the most unique aircraft carriers in the world. Moreover, it is one of the newest vessels, having finally completed its trial runs in 2022. Now, the INS Vikrant is finally commissioned into the Indian Navy at a cost of $3.1 billion. With a displacement just shy of 45,000 tons, this vessel is rather large, and much like the Charles de Gaulle, it can easily carry up to 40 fixed-wing aircraft. The vessel itself is one of the most powerful in the world, and given the power India holds in Central Asia, it is no use for anyone to take a stab at the Indian Navy. But even though this might be the most technologically advanced vessel in the Indian Navy, it is still not the biggest, which you will see in a second. Speaking of India's biggest vessel, the INS Vikramaditya is the older of the two sister ships, but it is slightly larger than its counterpart, which we discussed just a second ago. Its displacement is 45,400 tons, which just pips the newer and more modern version. Unfortunately, this carrier is native to India and was once used by the Soviet Union. India purchased this battleship in 2004, which finally entered service as a Kiev-class carrier in 2013. In total, this carrier can carry about 36 aircraft, which doesn't really seem like much. However, a lot of space is occupied by the large crew the vessel carries. Aside from the aircraft it can carry, this vessel also allows the Navy to transport helicopters from one point to another. But as technology continues to evolve and size begins to wane, the INS Vikrant will surely become the pride of the Indian Navy and serve the country for a few more decades. So, how about the country everyone fears could potentially be the catalyst of World War III? In terms of overall stature, very little can compare to the Leone. It is the biggest aircraft carrier in the People's Liberation Navy. But much like the previous one, this was not originally made in China. In fact, it was planned to be the second Kuznetsov-class aircraft carrier and later found itself in the hands of the Chinese. In fact, China bought this vessel from the Soviet Union in 1991, and it has a displacement of around 58,000 tons, a big leap from the previous one we discussed. But this vessel is not used in a combat capacity. It is mainly for training and experimenting, especially when troops are getting to grips with the newer rules and designs of modern carriers. Aboard the Kuznetsov-class aircraft carrier, you will find about 50 fixed-wing aircraft and additional helicopters from the People's Republic of China. Moreover, it is currently classified as the fourth longest carrier in the world, and after being rebuilt in 2012, you can expect this vessel to be fully equipped with the latest in naval and military technology. Very few aircraft carriers can compare to the Admiral Kuznetsov. It is the first Kuznetsov-class carrier in the world and has a fully loaded displacement of 58,600 tons, which is just slightly bigger than its sister ship, which was sold to China. One of its biggest flaws is the fact that this carrier is still steam-powered, which does require quite a lot of maintenance. In fact, Admiral Kuznetsov has been out of service since 2018, with the Russian government citing maintenance and service as the main reason. However, numerous incidents and issues regarding the vessel and its maintenance plan mean that it is still out of service. At a top speed of 29 knots, this vessel is perhaps one of the fastest, with the ability to even outspeed the Titanic, once touted as the fastest and most reliable ship the world had ever seen. Carrying about 33 aircraft and 12 helicopters has made this one of the most impressive vessels in the Russian fleet. But given the rate at which these vessels are falling to Ukraine, it might be a wise move for the Russian Federation to keep it in maintenance for as long as possible. But this is only the first 5, and the next few you are about to see will absolutely blow your mind. Bet you thought the list would be completely dominated by the United States, right? The Royal Navy was once touted as the greatest power in the world. Its ability to navigate the world's oceans, colonize many nations, and ultimately control every accessible water body would make it the most feared as well. Unfortunately, the Royal Navy has faced a steep decline, especially following the Second World War. But its flagship, the HMS Queen Elizabeth, is perhaps one of the most feared vessels currently floating in the world's oceans. Its sister ship, the HMS Prince of Wales, is also a Queen Elizabeth-class carrier, which means that its specifications are the exact same, regardless of which one you see. Both have a displacement of 65,000 tons and can carry up to 40 rotary and fixed-wing aircraft. It is powered by 2 Rolls-Royce Marine 36-megawatt MT 30 gas turbine alternators and 4 10-megawatt diesel engines, which does put it at a disadvantage given the fact that every other nation has now gone nuclear. A top speed of 25 knots is easily reachable by these 2 vessels, but it has been tested to reach a top speed of around 32 knots. This means that the Queen Elizabeth-class carriers are not only the second largest outside of the United States, but it is also one of the fastest in the world. So, as the Royal Navy might be failing and a complete rebuild is needed, the United Kingdom can rely on these aircraft carriers to keep the Navy safe. China's aircraft carrier, the Shandong, is by far one of the most advanced and powerful carriers in the world. It is China's first home-built aircraft carrier and has a displacement of around 70,000 tons, which is far more than any other carrier we have seen on this list so far. The Shandong makes use of a stow bar, short takeoff but arrested recovery system, which is one of the more advanced and modern ways to launch and recover aircraft. Moreover, the vessel was recently built, which means that it now features all the latest tech advancements, many of which are still highly classified. It is powered by conventional steam turbines, which do prove to be somewhat vulnerable for extended combat periods. This does allow the vessel to easily reach a top speed of 31 knots, while it carries about 30 aircraft on deck. The Shandong is certainly one of the vessels that virtually any nation doesn't want to come to blows with. It also features a highly advanced crew and is now known as the pride of the People's Liberation Navy. Still, it is not the biggest aircraft in Asia. The biggest carrier in China is newer, more advanced, and even bigger than its predecessors. Built at the Jiangnan shipyard in Shanghai, the Fujian is the third biggest aircraft carrier currently in the world. It is the third and final Chinese aircraft carrier, launched only in 2022. With a displacement of 80,000 tons, this vessel is by far one of the biggest, and it is said to be far more advanced and efficient than any other carrier in the Chinese Navy. Once again, this vessel is powered by steam turbines, and a lot of information regarding its speed and other features is still kept under heavy wraps. Moreover, the vessel can possibly hold more than 50 aircraft, making it a massive threat, especially with ongoing tensions between China and Taiwan taking center stage in recent years. Unfortunately, still, most of the information regarding this vessel and precisely how much power it does have is impossible to discern. Fujian has not been seen too often, and it is something the Chinese government keeps highly classified, especially when it comes to sharing details with its enemies. But with all these vessels out of the way, it is time for the two biggest, which hail from the United States. Few things, if any, can come close to the Nimitz-class aircraft carriers. The United States currently operates 10 of these incredible vessels, each with a displacement of around 97,000 pounds. On top, the carrier features a massive 4.5-acre airfield, which holds up to 60 aircraft, but can possibly store even more if need be. The Nimitz class can hold up to 6,000 sailors, and it is by far one of the most advanced vessels in the United States Navy. All these vessels are fully nuclear-powered, which essentially reduces maintenance and allows the vessel to operate for up to 25 years. But what is even more impressive is just how long these vessels have been operating. The USS Nimitz, or the original option, was first commissioned in 1975, while the latest, the USS George H.W. Bush, was commissioned in 2009. These vessels can supposedly reach a top speed of up to 30 knots while being operational for months at a time. In fact, we have created many videos discussing everything from the captain's quarters to the mess hall and galley. Nowadays, the United States has added a Starbucks and cafeteria to these vessels, which certainly makes it one of the most luxurious as well. Its contingent of powerful aircraft is perhaps the most important, and the additional destroyers that make up a carrier. Strike Group make the Nimitz-class carriers some of the strongest in the world, but one is just slightly better. Nothing compares to the U.S. Navy's Gerald R. Ford class battleships. Its flagship, the USS Gerald R. Ford, is perhaps the biggest and most intimidating vessel you will ever come to see. Commissioned in 2017, this is merely the first of 4 that the U.S. Navy is currently trying to build. It has a displacement of 100,000 tons while having the ability to house up to 75 aircraft. These are usually made up of F-35 Lighting II, F/A-18 Super Hornet, and Growlers that the Navy relies on when it comes to combat missions and sorties. Much like the Nimitz class, this is a highly sophisticated vessel, which now has all the latest in equipment and technology. In fact, the USS Gerald R. Ford is undoubtedly the most powerful in the world, and while many might argue for the USS Carl Vinson, it simply doesn't come close. The vessel is powered by 2 Bechtel A-1BPWR nuclear reactors, which have the ability to keep the ship sailing for decades. While the true speed of the Gerald R. Ford is not known, it is undeniably one of the fastest, with estimates putting it around the 35-knot mark. So, while all the other countries might have dominated this list, the use of the Nimitz class and Gerald R. Ford are undoubtedly the most advanced vessels in the world. Nobody would want to come face-to-face with this carrier strike group and face the full wrath of the United States Navy. The aircraft carrier is by far one of the most potent weapons in any navy. It enables a country to bring air power to the coast of another nation, which completely changes the scope of the battle. But which one of these carriers would you like to see or even work on? Let us know in the comments below.